Nedbank Financial Planning, we utilize our globally integrated advice-led approach to enable our clients to connect their financial decisions to their life goals and aspirations. Practically, this means providing our clients with access to technical expertise, appropriate opportunities, appropriate solutions and products across Nedbank and other top providers. But most importantly, it's about connecting our clients to personal and objective advice to enable our clients to make better financial decisions and avoid financial disasters. A key pillar of this holistic advice approach that we follow is philanthropy and enabling our clients to achieve their giving aspirations. So whether you're an individual donor, whether you're a corporate, whether you're a business foundation, or whether you're a non-profit organization, we can help you achieve your giving aspirations. We've been recognized 5 years in a row for service excellence when it comes to advice that we provide from a philanthropy perspective. So you can be assured that we're going to help you achieve your giving aspirations in a meaningful and impactful way.
All right, good afternoon. I think that we're going to be hearing a whole lot more about the giving aspirations and what the giving aspirations of the general South African public has looked like in the past recent while, and more specifically what the giving aspirations of the high net worth individuals in this country do look like. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen in the physical room, as well as the same to the ladies and gents joining us in the virtual room. My name is Fifi Peters, and I have the pleasure of spending your lunch hour with you today as we feed through the latest findings of the Nedbank Private Wealth Giving Report for 2022. As many of you in this room and who are logged in know, this is not the first report that has been released of this kind. The Nedbank Giving Report has been around for some time now, just giving us a revelation into what the giving behavior and the giving patterns of the well-to-do in South Africa's society look like. But of course, what's different about this one is that the last report that we did get to feed through was released in 2018, before the COVID-19 pandemic, which means that this particular report offers some really interesting insights into how the pandemic did impact on the philanthropy sector. We do know that the pandemic turned a whole host of things upside down. In fact, life as we know it upside down. And it did disrupt the global order, it disrupted the supply chain, which disrupted the prices of a whole lot of things, which fed through inflation that ate into the incomes of most people. And therefore, I think that this report that we'll be hearing a little bit more about in just a short while will offer some interesting insights into how the financial pressures that most of us did experience in the past 2 years or so did impact on the spirit of giving. With that said, a fantastic lineup of speakers that are in store for you today that you'll be hearing from, offering further insights and speaking to the topic more deeply. And to those speakers who are mostly in this room, I'd like to say I have been mandated to run this program, which will run for about an hour or so, like a German captain. And I therefore ask that you stick to your allotted time slots. There's a lot to fill into this very packed program. And I'd also like to ask the audience to feel free and engage and share your thoughts and your comments and what you think about the giving patterns of the high net worth individuals. And whether you have any further questions on it, feel free to engage with us. The same to the virtual audience, of course, and you can do that using the hashtags Giving Report 2022 and also Connected Wealth. Take your pick, and feel free also to include Nedbank Private Wealth in on any of the things that you might express on social media, any preferred social media platform of your choice: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I think TikTok, I'm not sure. but they might be there. With that said, I'd like to introduce the very first speaker for today, an in-house speaker from Nedbank who will be giving us further opening remarks, Ms. Marlies Lansel. She's the Managing Executive for Nedbank Wealth Management. Marlies, over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nedbank Private Wealth Giving Report media launch. It is wonderful to meet you face to face after such a long time, and thank you for the valuable role the media plays in creating general awareness about the important role that we can play to develop a culture of sustainable giving in South Africa. I hope that the research and report provide you some insights. And if you'd like to chat to us on a one-to-one basis or get more information, we have Tracy Miller and Clara Quizera here. They are available to take your details and your questions, and we will get back to you. In a society where vast inequalities continue to exist, it's a privilege to be part of Nedbank, who take its corporate social investment responsibility very seriously, and who has developed a long track record of helping businesses and wealthy families make the most of their giving, and to help the non-profit sector to use the resources that they have to make a lasting and sustainable positive impact. This is one of my favorite things about being part of the Nedbank family. We are all connected to the communities that we live and we work in. And we find it very rewarding to help others make a real difference to the world around us, in our small way, to leave a legacy. At Nedbank Private Wealth, we call this connected wealth. We are committed to connecting our clients to the professional advice and services they need to achieve their personal, business, and philanthropic goals. Before I share some context about the giving report, I would like to encourage you to consider your personal giving. The festive season is around the corner, and instead of splurging on all those short-term consumer purchases, consider contributing to a cause you really care about. While we work for large foundations, we also know that regular small contributions are a vital aid for non-profit organizations when planning their operational and financial requirements. We encourage everyone here today to consider the fact that single and large contributions obviously makes a huge difference. But it's those small and regular debit orders that are the lifeblood of cash flow requirements and enable planning and financial liquidity throughout the year. In the 12 years since we first launched the Giving Report, which happened to be the first of its kind at that time, this critical research has gone from strength to strength as a trusted source of information and insight into the giving habits and practices and behaviors of high net worth individuals across the country. Based on the overwhelming positive response that every edition of the report enjoys, we have continued to invest in this important research, and we are pleased that today it's considered as a vital contributor towards strengthening philanthropy and encouraging the habit of giving across the country. We are proud to present this 5th edition of the Giving Report, which builds on over a decade of in-depth research and incorporates the invaluable feedback and suggestions of diverse stakeholders in the philanthropy sector. It's encouraging to note that despite all the economic challenges presented by the pandemic, the spirit of giving is still alive and well amongst high net worth individuals in South Africa. The percentage of survey respondents who continued with the philanthropic activities in 2021 remained at 83%, the same as it was in 2018 before COVID-19 changed everyone's financial reality. Among the most significant changes identified in this Giving Report is the trend of continued transformation in the population of the high net worth individuals in this country and those actively involved in philanthropy. In a very pleasing positive shift, more than half of all givers were female for the first time since the research was conducted in 2010. Also importantly, affluent black South Africans now make up more than a quarter of the givers in the market. It's a welcome development to observe how the composition of this cohort moves closer towards a reflection of the country, and to consider the possibilities for how a new generation of philanthropists will shape the sector in the future. Despite contractions in the amounts of cash, non-cash donations, and volunteer hours, as South Africa has sought to recover from the pandemic, the Giving Report findings point to a sustainable outlook, supported by the fact that a quarter of the givers surveyed indicated they would consider increasing even more. Would consider giving even more in the future if their earnings increased. This, coupled with the fact that 19% of the non-givers surveyed said that they would be more likely to start giving if the economy improved, augurs well for philanthropy in general, is South Africa is able to return to a position of positive growth and development. I would like to now hand over to Hein Klee, who was involved in this report. Hein will be followed by a keynote address from a living legend I'm sure most of you are well acquainted with, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman from The Gift of Givers. We will then move to a panel discussion that will be facilitated by Fifi Peters, where they will discuss the theme of nurturing giving at the heart of human greatness. We will then open the floor to a Q&A session and end the day off. Thank you, Hein.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to present some of the findings from the fifth report to you. Hopefully you all have noticed that the report is in a package for you, so it's not for you not to read it. I think the next couple of minutes doesn't justify the amount of work that's gone into this. I think also the information that we actually have in this is extremely valuable from a philanthropic perspective. We decided to kick off with giving you the dessert first. So we actually gave you the four main things that we actually found to be quite interesting. Although we've seen an increase in the giving in cash, specifically over this period, the portion of donations being cash, we did see a approximate 2 billion rand drop in the value thereof. Now, to break that down for you, and it's actually in the report, 4.2 billion rand was donated over this period in cash, 2.6 billion rand in goods and services, and over 3.2 million hours of time was actually donated from various people to various organizations. I think also from what we've gone through the pandemic itself, we saw quite a big drop in volunteering time compared to 2019. What was also interesting is to see how the younger generation is starting to contribute towards giving. And we're almost seeing an equal segment between the ages of 36 to 50 and 50 to 65. And for the first time, we've actually seen an all-time high for the age group between 36 and 50. As Marilise mentioned earlier, we also saw for the first time that 50% of givers are female, and about 25% of that is actually black South Africans. Various stats also indicate that women actually live longer than men, and we all know that. So specifically from the US, there's a huge amount of studies going into what is philanthropy drivers doing towards females as they actually go into that next phase of their lives, as they start inheriting money. And that's something that we actually discussed at the panel when we started putting questions together. Is that something that we potentially want to bring into the sixth report? So that's actually quite an interesting finding that we do think merits some more research. I'm going to touch on the methodology very briefly, because I think it's very, very important that you do understand where this survey comes from. It's not Nedbank clients that we actually go and speak to. It's 409 interviews that we do with ultra-high net worth individuals in South Africa. Sometimes there's a perception that we actually have this discussion with our clients only. So the interviewing process that we actually do is with ultra-high net worth individuals in South Africa. Some of the contributors to the questionnaires in this room, and I think if I had to put the list of ideas of what we wanted to bring into the survey down on a piece of paper, it actually justifies 6,700 surveys that we can actually do in the future, because there's so many new things that are actually coming in that people specifically wanted to do. The other important thing, which is not mentioned in the survey itself, is that Nedbank contributed 180 Rand per person that participated in the survey, and about 45,000 Rand was actually donated to 2 organizations, specifically for people that participated in the survey itself. The sample survey, I'm going to start going through a few of these slides a little bit quicker because I do know we're short on time, but I think the important part here is that the majority of our participants is in an income bracket of about 1.5 to 5 million Rand and reported a net worth of between 5 and 10 million Rand per year. What's very interesting is that 7 in 10 of the respondents reported a net worth of between 5 and 10. I think it also is quite important once we start looking at the next bracket. Now, in many cases, one would see a contribution increase from the younger generation. But in many cases, these are younger generation individuals that do not necessarily have asset size of which they want the asset size contributions to go towards giving. So that is actually income that's coming through from the younger generation which are going towards charities. And your older generation is where wealth is sitting, and wealth is then being utilized towards giving causes that they specifically are looking at. But it is encouraging to see the big spike that we've seen in the ages 30 to 40, the increase between 56 to 60 and 61 and 65. So it's not only the old people that give money. We are starting to see that the younger generation of people are actually taking giving serious. And one of the things that's also started coming through, and a big question from younger generation, is sustainability. What is the drivers towards ESG? What are you doing with the money that I'm giving to actually do good when it comes to sustainability and ESG factors? Just a brief summary on the givers versus non-givers. That stat actually stayed the same compared to the previous one. Roughly about 83% of ultra-high net worth individuals in South Africa give towards a cause. Now remember, it's either through time, through goods, or through money. Market sizing, and again, the first giving report was launched, I think, in 2013 or 2010, if memory serves me correct. And that was the first actual survey that went and found out the behavior of philanthropic clients and what's giving. Our second report was the first time where we could actually scope and give to the industry what we believe this market is like. What is the size of it? So I think that's come a long way, where we actually now have quite a strong database of what we believe is the number of ultra-high net worth individuals in South Africa. I think that number is just shy of 148,000 people. And our estimation is that 83% of those, in some form or the other, are actually giving towards a charity, or in the sense of cash, goods, or their time. I think Marlies also mentioned a little bit earlier, the younger age, as I've mentioned, 18 to 35, we started seeing an increase. It's also positive to see that the increments of non-givers are not as prominent as what we've seen in the past, so it has started slowing down slightly. But again, the age brackets are again coming through 36 to 50 and 50 to 65. Here's the interesting fact, and this is what Marlies mentioned earlier, is we've seen a phenomenal increase in black Africans starting towards giving towards causes, either in the format of cash, goods or services, or their time, which I think is a very strong positive development from what we can see from this. The non-givers, the guys, as Marlies mentioned, that's consuming the stuff over December on iPhones and all of those kind of things. What are those looking like? About a fifth, or 21%, indicated that they would do so or actually start giving if there's a change in their disposable income and asset liquidity, or, very importantly, a change to the economy. Now, you will notice that was not a topic that came through from future giving prospects in last year's or the previous survey. So again, the state of the economy is in a certain way, I think, positively correlated to giving behavior of people that's actually giving money to various organizations. Giving behavior. As we've mentioned, we have seen a drop in the cash contribution going towards giving. And one can look at various factors, but I personally just think during a period where we've gone into COVID, a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the first year, you would see that the cash values of 50 and above has dropped. And I would say someone would rather say, I'm giving something than giving nothing. So what would be interesting to see in the next survey, if we're starting to see that trend picking up. But I think the fact that we're still starting, or that we're still seeing people contributing towards charities through the form of cash giving is still a positive trend for us. Volunteering hours. Look, this is also a very difficult one. If you're locked down in your house, I don't know how many of us was locked, well, most of us was locked down. How many hours we were locked down, we don't know. But I think from a volunteering time, one do not know what impact that has. I think the other important thing which we also did not factor in, and it was very difficult to determine, during the hard lockdowns, we did see hospitals, hotels, schools actually kicking in to support various charities. And those are factors that we haven't brought into this report. So although the individual's time might have dropped, we might have actually seen an increase in the time that was actually given to various organizations under the lockdown that we have experienced. What is also interesting is to note that the hours of 100 to 200 has dropped from 11 to 3%, and that is a little bit worrying. I think also in many cases, a lot of our NGOs are hunger for expertise in accounting, lawyers. A lot of us think it's the actual time that I spend with kids or in a soup kitchen or anything of that nature. There's a big outreach from a lot of the organizations for professional services that will actually cut their costs by running these NGOs. Motivation for giving. This was actually quite an interesting one, because I would have thought the first thing that people want to do in the ultra-high net worth individual bracket is to get the tax incentive. Look where the tax incentive on this scale sits. Sits almost right down at the bottom at 2%. Our biggest driver that comes through here is care about a cause, followed by I want to make a difference, and then thirdly, a support that I need to make, which I've been made aware of. So I think in the environment of people giving money, it's a lot of hearsay and speaking to other people on what they are doing. And that's also a question that we need to ask ourselves, is that, is the giving industry very fragmented? Are we seeing a whole lot of people wanting to do good at small level, instead of actually collectively coming together and making an impact specifically on a specific sector? Focus areas. Social and community development is the number one, and it's been like that, I think, for the last 5 reports. What is interesting is that religious causes have dropped from 41% to 25%. So clearly the Dermanies are not doing their work at this specific stage. And the other important thing is that education has dropped. Now, one is not sure what the reasons for that is due to schools being closed or anything of that nature, but that is a slight worrying factor, that we have seen a drop towards the giving, especially when it comes to education. Our sector allocations, again, 43% of giving in 21 went to social and community development, which is up from 2018. The report also indicated that 6% of total giving went to COVID-19 pandemic. So one can see, one would have anticipated in the survey that a huge amount of giving money went towards COVID relief. And that's actually not the case, which is a positive thing in a certain way, because the pattern of giving has continued and it's not steered away. what is interesting to find maybe in the next report that we do is to see what the money has been utilized for that was earmarked for COVID-19 relief. Where has that been channeled into? And has that changed in the next couple of years? The impact of COVID-19 on the individuals that we surveyed, it's very interesting to note that half of participants rated their personal financial security as about the same as pre-pandemic. So we didn't see a huge impact in a lot of people when it comes to their security, although we've seen a slight drop in the participants that basically said my financial security is the same as pre-pandemic, and a slight increase from 16 to 29 in being slightly financially secure or less secure. Now here's a very interesting one. We started asking participants what needs to change for you to give more. This was an open question that we actually brought into the survey to try and grasp what would be the driver of people giving more. Now again, I would say tax benefits. The major driver is an increase in our income and more funds. Nothing needs to change. And it depends on the needs if there is merit. So again, looking for something and getting the merit from it. Look where tax incentives are sitting out of 409 participants. 0. So again, my belief is that giving in South Africa is very sound and healthy to the extent that we are giving for the reason of wanting to do good and not for necessarily just getting the recognition and the tax rewards therefore. So just to end off, just a summary again. I think the important part of the information that's contained in the report, I think again this is, if not one, but the only report of this nature in South Africa. It's the 5th edition thereof. And I really do think from a lot of the participation that we've seen from our panelists that there are some very, very interesting trends that we think can actually fill itself in this report. One of the things that did come through from younger givers is how can we actually use cryptocurrency or cryptocurrency payments towards giving. So that's another question which are starting to come through from the younger generation that's coming through that one could potentially pull into the report itself. I want to thank you, and thank you very much.
There are many different sides to you. Is your bank serious about connecting your wealth to all of them? Our wealth advisors connect your money decisions to every facet of your life. We call it Connected Wealth.
All right. Thanks, Hein. You didn't stick to time, but I'll allow you because that report, very fascinating insights, and I understand the difficulty concising that 43 pages into 10, 15 minutes. It was tough for you, but let's see what we can do about it. And I think that it is very fascinating that we give because we want to make a difference. I think for me, I'm proudly South African. I'm patting myself on the back right now because it's not motivated necessarily by tax incentives, which is really interesting, except I wonder if more people knew about the tax incentives, if it would encourage more giving to go to the causes, but nonetheless. So now we're going to talk about, all right, so we give because we want to, and it's absolutely fantastic, but we do know that we have got a very sensitive, and we're in a very fragile position as a country right now. So now we're going to hear about the role that philanthropy can play towards nation building and minimizing the vulnerability that our society finds itself in right now. We heard from Marlies, and she described him as a living legend. In the briefing session with the Nedbank team, they described him as the king of philanthropy. I think it was Dumi. I think it sounds like something that would have come from Dumia. And so a renowned philanthropist really doesn't need an introduction. He is the founder of Gift of the Givers, and we have seen the phenomenal work that he has done and continues to do, and how he responds to the various crises that hit us: COVID, the riots, the floods, and. I know you know who I'm talking about, so I'm going to allow him to come through right now to the stage, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, for a conversation.
Is there time on the thing here? Okay, I'll check my phone. Thank you very much, Fifi, everybody. Thanks for the invite. The report, I'd like to relate the practical aspect of the report in terms of what was being said there. And I agree with it virtually 100%. And let me start explaining this. COVID was a defining factor in changing human thinking, bringing in spirituality, making people more conscious, where life of a human being became more important than publicity, marketing, PR, or just being a number. Now, corporates, over the years, were interested in the BE points, the tax certificate, getting a write-up, and trying to please themselves as to how good they were in social service. But in most cases, that social service had no meaning. It was done ad hoc, or your friend's friend was some organization run by your friend, and you needed to support that organization. And we needed to change that thinking. We needed to do something that was more effective, that made a sustainable, meaningful intervention in the lives of millions of people in this country. And so, COVID it was. For the first time, the CEOs of the companies got involved. And they said, don't worry about the CSI division. I'm the CEO of the company. What do you need, and how much do you need? We need to save lives. We need to save our country. That was the defining moment. Right now, people are saying South Africa is in a critical place. Is there hope? Is there a future? Can the country be saved? The country will always be saved because there's people with compassionate hearts. 83% of people consistently giving over a period of time when there is COVID, unrest, floods, fuel prices, high inflation, difficulty in exchange, in dealing with the rest of the world, shortage of shipping containers, and all the crisis, unemployment, and we still survive to help each other. This country can never fail. And just as an aside, you see, racism won't destroy the country. Class difference won't destroy the country. Hunger won't destroy the country. Our population has proven it. 27 April 1994 was a critical defining moment in the history of this country. Every international media sent their war room because they were expecting a bloodbath in South Africa. People stocked their houses with food, had their passports ready, had their money ready. They were supposed to leave the country. For media, it was the most boring event that ever took place. All you saw was snakes and snakes of lions on a hot day on that April 27. But the message behind that was far more significant than the lions going to vote. It said that we are a South African nation that is not vindictive. We don't want revenge. We are forgiving. We've had years of oppression, detention without trial. Family members have died. Things have been difficult. But yet we are ready to build a nation across the whole country. And we from the privileged lot have to accept that and understand that they've reached out to us. Have we reached out to them adequately? You're patting yourselves on the back. I think you can do far better than that, I'm sorry. You know, and quite a few times, quite a few people feel that what the corporate is giving absolves them of their responsibility as individuals to give. I have donors who are in the middle class, who give far more than corporate funding, who give far more than high net worth individuals, because their heart is in the right place. But I don't want to take away the fact that the hearts have changed within the corporate world, where people have become, where compassion has come into commercialization. You see, because the CEO of companies saw how other companies collapsed, saw how his brother or sister lost their job, or how they died because of COVID. Things changed overnight. People from high positions lost everything. And I'll give you some practical examples. And all this is to explain to you why giving is so important. And I'll come back to the point where I said the country was saved by people who did not take revenge. What is the one factor that will destroy the country? Lack of dignity. When you don't have dignity, when you're humiliated, and there's no end left, there's nothing left for you, and it's a total hopeless situation, there's no limit to the chaos you can create, the negative energy that can run through you, because there are no consequences. You've lost everything. And the only way to save that, all the economists talk, and the politicians talk, and the world markets talk, there's only one thing that will save a country. If people are dignified, and their dignity is looked after, they will not destroy a country. You see Eastern Cape? Well, as I'm speaking to you right now, there's children dying of starvation. In a country that's got gold, diamonds, and platinum. In the city which is the most high network city on the continent. And people in this province are dying from hunger. And why are they dying from hunger? Because hunger is very normal among adults in the Eastern Cape. So they live with hunger every day. So when the child gets hungry, it's part of the program. So the child is hungry like us. It's not a problem. We all live in hunger together. The only difference is a child doesn't survive hunger. Undernutrition kills a child. So when they bring the child to the clinic, it's too late. The child is dead. Now imagine if it's your own child. Your child hasn't got food. You go late to the clinic. Your child dies. What does that cost you? We need to be in touch. You know, it's nice to see the things on TV and say, okay, I'm giving to this cause. But do you really feel what's going on in the ground? Do you really feel the sentiment and the sensitivity and the emotions? No, you don't. You guys are in boardrooms and in offices. You're protected and shielded from what's going on in the ground. How do you explain to a mother, I'm sorry, madam, your 2-year-old child fell down a pit latrine and drowned in feces? What kind of humiliating, undignified death is that? We need to look at these kind of things, and our interventions have to be directed towards those kind of approaches to fix those kind of things, not just putting money randomly everywhere and to pat yourself on the back, I've done well. An airline pilot and a hotel manager calls us during the early days of lockdown and says, I got an expensive house, expensive car, kids in a private school. Can you bring me a food parcel? I can't afford the house anymore. I can't afford the car anymore. My kids are taken out of school. We're too embarrassed to take them to any other school, so my wife is homeschooling. Both the airline pilot said that about his side, the man, and the lady said that about, from her side, the husband and her will teach the kids together. In Strand, in a place called Nonzamo, when the lockdown took place, April 2020, 8 o'clock at night, the queue was long. Old people coming from Nonzamo, they were hungry, they were standing in that queue. The hunger was not because of lockdown only. The hunger is an ongoing problem in the country for a long time. We responded to a fire last night in a place called Masiphumelele in Fishhoek for the second time in 2 weeks. But you know what the people said? Give us food, don't worry about anything else. Did the fire make them so hungry? They were hungry long before the fire. And that's the general trend we're seeing throughout the country. People are hungry for a long period of time. It's the most demoralizing, destructive thing that can happen to anybody. So the old people are standing in the queue, and the police says, 8 o'clock, it's curfew, you're going to shut the thing down. And I said, stand on your head, do what you want, lock us up, we're breaking the law. To the credit of the police, you see, this thing can't be done alone. It has to be done together. Government, corporates, public, religious sector, all have to work together. There's no other way to fix this country. The police understood compassion. He understood the language of the heart. And he said, you're right, old people can't go hungry. So he called for reinforcements, and more police came, put the old people in a van, and the last person collected the food at 12:30 at night. And the person said, I'm going home now to wake my children up, my grandchildren. So we said, why bring something so crazy? They said, when I left home this morning, I saw the look of hope in the eyes of my grandchildren. am I coming back with something? And because I came back with something, I have to wake them up to say something did come. There is something to eat. We won't understand this. We can eat 5 meals a day. We go to a restaurant and don't even finish the food. We won't understand this. You go to a peddy, and the lady comes well-dressed, dignified. Don't look at the clothing, because you haven't lived in the person's life. Comes dignified and says, thank you very much for the food parcel. Speak to my children. They will tell you the taste of every plant in this area. For the last 3 months, they ate plants to survive. Did they burn the country? No. They stood with it in patience and hope that something like this would save their lives and make a difference. In one of the dump sites, the kids came running as the dump trucks came. And a child runs and takes a jam tin and starts sucking a jam tin, which can cut the lips of the child and cause infection. Another child takes a finger and puts in a peanut butter bottle to get whatever little bit is there to eat the peanut butter. Another child comes to a soup kitchen queue, and we funded hundreds of soup kitchen queues. And the child comes in July 2020 in Transkei, freezing cold, barefoot, torn shirt, no hat, no jersey, no jacket. Comes to the queue and says, I'm hungry, but I won't eat too much. Do you mind giving my share for my mother, my father, my brother, and my sister? They haven't eaten for 5 days, so I won't eat much. You want true sacrifice, true altruism, true giving report? That's the child. Teaches you the values of life, of sacrifice, that put its parents and its family before everything else and was prepared to survive and to starve. And we said, take what you want. That story of hunger is throughout the country. So I'm just giving you one example of why it's so important to continue giving and not rest and say, okay, my company did it. What did you do? Your survival, the future of your children, the progress of the country depends on creating opportunity and giving dignity back to people. I want to finish off with just 2 more points and then one example of what can be done that can make a meaningful difference in the life of this country. Corporate South Africa, I need to take the hat off to them. The fact that you got this kind of thing going on, a report, who really what is about who gives charity. But to go in and look at the charity, who's giving what, how much is giving, is it making a difference to the country? This is scientific, it's important. It shows you have a heart to find out what's going on. That's important for the country. COVID came, the CEOs stood up and said, we'll help. When the looting took place, the guys whose shops got burnt were the first guys to call and say, how much do you want and what must we do? People would say, let people burn, we're not going to do anything. We mad at them, what have they done? No. The compassion overrode everything and said, we will give you, don't worry about our shop. But to me, the defining moment was 11 April 2022, this year, when the flood waters were rising 8 meters in 45 minutes. And I'm expecting something to say, I need a helicopter, I need a boat, I need a diver, I need an excavator, the wall fell, the house fell. I'm waiting for calls like that. Not one call like that. The only calls I got was from corporate South Africa. Till 1 o'clock in the morning. What do you need? And how much do you need? And I asked them, are you guys feeling well? So they asked me why. I said, since when have you guys stayed awake at night to give away money? You always want to make money after hours. And they said, we understood what COVID did to the people. We understood hardship and difficulty. You see, if it of a private hospital and said, I got COVID, I got 2 billion rand in my bank account, I need a bed. The guy would say, you can have 5 billion rand in your account, you can know the president, you can know the Minister of Health, you can know the group CEO of the hospital. If there's no bed there, we're not going to take a guy out who's got 50,000 rand because you got 2 billion. You're going to die with your 2 billion outside the door of the hospital. And that's why the critical thing in this country, if you haven't learned that from COVID yet, is health is number one. Nothing is more important than health, because without health, you do bugger all. Mental health and physical health. And the example I want to give you is this, and I'm asking corporate South Africa to look at this very seriously. The health system is in serious trouble, because the Minister of Health well, not the Minister of Health, but the Health Department sent out a letter to say no infrastructure upgrade, no new equipment, no repair of old equipment, job frozen, no supplies, this, that, and the other. But the biggest mistake that was made was to cut registrars. If you cut registrars, you cut academic medicine. It means there won't be people who become specialists. It means there's no learning upwards and there's no learning downwards, because registrars trains the junior doctors behind them. You affect the entire health system, and people drop dead in front of you because you don't have the capacity, you don't have the skill, and they know they can save that person. It breaks them because the resources and the support is not given. It demoralizes the entire system. It takes people's dignity away. They die for no reason. So you want to challenge CSI money. I make a call to all corporate South Africa. Let's fund 500 registrars in this country. And they only go to academic hospitals, obviously, because they're attached to medical schools. What does it cost? 1.2 million rand a registrar per year. It's nothing. But you have to fund them for 4 years, because they take 4 years to study to finish the course. You'll bring hope into the system, you'll bring the saving of lives, you'll bring dignity, you'll bring academic medicine, you'll bring research, you'll bring quality care in the hospital service. And when 500 registrar posts are created, it means 500 posts below them are created. Right now, those posts are not created, because the registrars are sitting in medical officer posts. So there's no advancement in medicine. And this is something we're going to address and we're going to change. And it's across the board: surgery, orthopedics, ophthalmology, ENT, neurology, cardiology, vascular surgery, the works. 500 registrars is not a big deal, and we can make a huge difference. This is one meaningful project. I can give you hundreds more. But to me, this is the one that will be a defining moment for the health of the country. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very please, kindly take your seat. Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thanks. Very passionate, impassioned plea there. We'll be digging further into it in just a moment. Can I call upon the panel right now just to take this session for us home? Kathy Duff, director at Trialogue. Apologies for that. Umunyana Rujeje, executive director of Section 27, as well as Hein Klee, who is the head of international. We heard from him earlier at Nedbank Private Wealth, South Africa. So, real quick, and perhaps to hear from voices that we haven't heard from as yet. Kathy, you do quite a lot of work with the corporate sector. You've seen, you can probably relate to how they have responded in this crisis. Just, I suppose, it's about amplifying the action right now and what they can do right now. And what do you think that is? And how do you think they're thinking about perhaps doing more?
Thanks, Fifi. Thank you, Dr. Suleiman. Really encouraging to hear your talk, particularly what you were saying about CSI. I think we found a similar thing, that one of the silver linings of COVID was that social issues really moved to the boardroom for the first time in many companies, and companies are taking it a lot more seriously. In terms of amplifying it, I think companies now have realized that they have a social responsibility. There's obviously the moral reason for that, which we find when we do our research is the main reason companies say that they are doing it. But there's also increasing pressure from customers, from employees, future employees, and from investors themselves. Hein mentioned ESG, and investors are increasingly looking for companies that take ESG into account. So I'd say social responsibility needs to go a lot beyond CSI or corporate giving, and it really needs to be embedded and built into a company's strategy and across its entire value chain. And I think we've seen this starting to happen, and again, COVID accelerated the shift, where first and foremost, companies were looking at their employees, and they were looking internally, and they were looking at the mental well-being of their employees. And there's all the issues of gender diversity, remuneration, fair pay, labor standards, all of those things that a company can make a significant difference in society just by looking at its employment practices. And then down its value chain, looking at its suppliers, labor standards, ethical behavior with suppliers, supplier development, etc. Then in the marketplace, and then onto society with what they do in their giving.
Sure.
So I think social responsibility for me is a lot more than CSI, and it really means companies taking a look at what they can do to make a positive impact both internally and externally, and how they can embed that in the business.
All right. Okay, perfect. I did forget to remind everyone, particularly the virtual audience, just feel free to let us know what you think about everything that has been said so far, that hashtag Connected Wealth, and also Giving Report 2022. Omunyanis, you made a contribution in the actual report, and I want to pick up from what Dr. Suleiman said, in that this country is not going to burn down for the things that we think will bring it down, is the argument that he made. Yet you wrote in the report about your concerns about a, quote, unenviable position that South Africa is in right now, being the most unequal, one of the most unequal places to live. And you call, from my interpretation, you call for a reset of philanthropy, or philanthropy going a step further. Tell us a little bit more about what you were saying there.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to my fellow panelists. So I said in the article that we are in a situation where we are the most unequal country in the world, and have been for a long time. And I think from what we know from COVID is that inequality and extreme poverty has only deepened. And also in the current economic climate, things are only going to get worse, right? We are in a global environment where there are recessions taking place in different countries, and people are struggling. And I think the picture that was painted by Dr. Suleiman is something that has to sit very heavy with us, because people are undignified when they go to schools and there are no toilets. Where they go to deliver a baby and they're turned away, or they're told to wait. There are high levels of obstetric violence in this country. And so we need to understand, as we sit in rooms like this, that there is a role for us to play, not only through CSI, which is very important, not only through humanitarian responses, and Dr. Suleiman talked about that, responding to floods, responding to COVID, responding to hunger, but we also have to dig deeper and understand what are the systemic issues in society that are the root cause of the circumstances of people. People are poor in this country. We don't get to see it every day. We watch the news every day and we see hotspots of this. But ultimately, we need to be putting our money at that level, the systemic level. And there are organizations like my own, Section 27, that works at that level to really understand what is the systemic barriers to accessing healthcare services. How do we address the poor infrastructure in schools that led to the death of Michael Komape? We continue to do that work in Limpopo. We're still in court over these issues. And so utilizing all of these different tools to advocate for people and to work with those communities, because as was said earlier, people understand their environment, people understand what they need. And I think it's important for society to really get down there and understand what the needs are, and to put more funding into not only the humanitarian response, but also to developing our democracy around addressing inequality, which in my view is really the challenge of our time.
All right. Sticking to health, wonderful point that you've made. You cannot grow an economy with sick people, no matter how productive your labor force can be. If people are unwell, you will not grow an economy. And I looked at where the giving went to, I'm going a bit off script right now, but I know that you can speak to this. Because I see that, I mean, health, one of the top 5 areas in which giving went to. But what was interesting was the fact that if you look at the trend of giving towards the health sector, it has declined over the years. So looking at your statistics, in 2012 it was at 36%, and in 2021 now at 16%. You work with and help the really high net worth individuals structure their finances a lot better, directing it a lot better towards philanthropic causes. And I'm just wondering what opportunity you see, responding to the call from Dr. Imtiaz, to do a whole lot more in the health sector, to invite a whole lot more corporates to give towards that sector. What opportunity you see in being or helping or providing that solution for your clients to channel the money in that direction?
I think you're raising a very important question around what are givers doing before they give? Do they actually do their homework to find out what are the causes that I need to give to? And I think that's missing. You're not seeing collective, I want to call it homework, or seeking advice to say what are the growing areas that we need to actually funnel money to. I think it was the previous report that we did. There's only 4% of ultra high net worth individuals that use a formal structure in which they are giving. So that tells me 96% of people are just giving and not really understanding what is the ultimate goal and purpose that I'm driving this towards. I think it can go wider than just healthcare. It can go to education. It can be to social upliftment. So I think the important part that sits in our world, and many organizations that drive philanthropy and the advice around that, is to get people to understand it's great to give, but what is the cause? I've mentioned to you a little bit earlier in the stats, I think it's very fragmented. It's all over the place. We're not seeing collectively research being done by various people to say the impact that I have will be X. How do I get there? So I think that's a very important thing that we're starting to realize, that when we interact with clients, that's a very important point that we bring across, is to say it's not just about the giving or the structure, is what is the cause? More importantly, what is the duration that you're going to give for? So there's no point in just giving a 10,000 Rand and then walking away. What's the impact thereof? Is it a 3 or a 5 year project that you specifically can commit yourself to within other areas? Just a closing remark on this, and I think it also came through from research that Nedbank did on their Affinity platform, is we're starting to see people are giving, but they're saying utilize the money that I'm giving in my local community. Don't splash it out nationally. I want to see the impact in my community and in my province and in my town. Don't go national with this. So I think it's very important that we do understand what are the key drivers. I think health is not the only one.
Yeah.
I think we need to understand what are the big ticket items, collectively say to our clients the impact that we will have through a vehicle or whatever structure that it is in KZN is this, and our commitment is at least 3 to 5 years, and drive it that way. Because I think the important part, and the problem you have, it's too fragmented at this specific point now. I don't think a lot of our ultra high net worth individuals understand the seriousness of health and how quick something of 500 people can fix a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they know that. And I think that's the important part where our advice is driven through.
All right.
I want to carry on from where you stopped.
Yeah, I've got plenty of questions for you, but I think that the people in this room have got plenty more.
But I just want to say something
Okay.
from what Highness is right, what he's saying, that people are all over the place, they don't know what to do. But we've seen a new trend with corporates coming to us. They come to us for their own plan, and we tell them it's not going to work. And now they don't become their own plan anymore. And they say, what do you recommend, what do you suggest?
Correct.
And because I tell you, so let's take an example. 5 guys come from Elof Street or somewhere in here and say, we all want to put food parcels in Elof Street. We tell them, but 4 guys have already did it. What's the point of the 5th one going there?
Sure.
Then they say, okay, do what you want. And over a period of time, we're finding now they don't only call to give you money for a particular cause. They call you later in the year And right now, we're flooded with corporates wanting to know what can we do next year. And we're finding the sustainability, the regularity, the amount increasing, and referring other corporates to us is increasing. So the corporate change, the thinking is changing. As Heinz said, we need to educate them more, because you've got so much of money, you want to make it go the fast way, as fast as possible, the best way. You know, his rights, not only health, education. I'll just give you one example.
Sure.
My wife is a counseling psychologist. She went to do an internship in a school. She walks into the school, there's 173 kids with learning disorders. Now, the 45 kids in the class, what progress is going to be made in the school with 173 kids with learning disorders? So what do you need? You need special education needs teachers, but they don't have it. And so we said, okay, they've got a beautiful center. We took over the center, we put in psychologists, special education needs teachers, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and said, let's make this as a prototype. And the point we need to make is why corporates have been resistant, because this is the government's work. But the reality is 7 million people's taxes can't look after 65 million people. It's impossible. You know, and all the crises we have now, so we have to give a landing hand. And just a simple example, one corporate can pay for the child to become a special education needs teacher, and another 4 corporates can pay the salary of the same child that goes to a school. It's the same like doing the registrar program. We're doing government's work, yes, but it's not for the government.
Sure.
It's for the people of South Africa.
Sure.
And until they get their act together, and let's give them 3 to 4 years notice. To say you've got 4 years, fix your system, after that you take over.
Okay.
No more corruption, no more stealing money, no more giving your contracts to your cat, to your dog, and your grandfather. You've got to change all those stories.
Got you. Questions? Any questions from the individuals in the room? All right, I think there's a mic that's coming out to you.
Thank you. Thanks for a really fantastic presentation. So 2 quick questions for the first is it better for someone to give across a spread of, say, 5 charities, 5 courses that they support with smaller amounts versus larger amounts to, say, 2 or 3? Or, as you mentioned earlier, to actually focus on a particular project that they want to support? And then the second question, a very quick one also, is why was there such a sharp dip, do you think, in animal welfare consideration this year versus last year? I think it was 16% from 25%.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm thinking you take the animal welfare.
I'll maybe just, maybe on the first question, I'll maybe just share with you what we're doing at the Nedbank Private Wealth Foundation. And we actually obviously have limited budget, and we actually said, what is the impact that we can have, which have a longer longevity, if one wants to call it. And back to your point, Doctor, is we started seeing, we've got the evidence, by educating teachers in science and maths and getting them upskilled, the marks of kids over a period of 3 years more than doubled. So actually using a lot of funding specifically towards teachers is quite important. My view is 5, unless you have a huge amount of money, you're not going to have a massive impact. But if you take 5 organizations that wanted to support one individual organization, you collectively go those together, the impact of 5 organizations will be far greater than one trying to split it into 5. But just back to Doctor's point as well, the education only doesn't only sit with the giving individuals, it sits with corporates as well. And I think we need to bring in corporate boardrooms, philanthropy 101 and giving 101, that they actually need to understand what is the importance thereof of what we can do as corporates around that.
So is that going to come out in the 6th edition?
We hope, because as you are getting requests from corporates, we are getting year-end a lot of requests from our Nedbank clients to say, we've got X amount of money, what do we do with this?
Okay.
So they actually come to us and say, well, is there an organization that you can steer this money towards? So it's definitely there. I think it's just the important part. Philanthropy 101 needs to be compulsory at boardroom level.
Okay, and just a quick one, any reason why contributions towards animal welfare?
I'm not
far
100% sure. The survey is obviously independent and neutral. We actually set it out. If one really needs to dig into it, we can actually try and see what we can find. But unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer.
I can just say something on that.
Okay, sure.
We speak to a lot of shelters, and people run places for dogs and for cats, and they say the normal donors that give them money just said one simple answer: we got no more money. The money is less because we had to pay more to help the domestic, or to help with the COVID, or to help with our civil unrest. Our income has decreased, or one member of the family is not working anymore, so you had to have a choice We have to put the people before the animal.
Okay.
And a lot of places have got a similar problem where a lot of dogs and cats are hungry because there is no money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the economy.
Yeah.
There was a hand, I think, Malise, did you want to ask a question?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I think Dr. Import, you've answered my question, because when you talk about health service education, that is typically government functions, and I wanted to understand to what extent has corruption influenced the pattern of giving from high net worth individuals. Because if I just take my personal circumstances, I like seeing tangible results. I want immediate satisfaction around, maybe it's part of my type A personality, but I would rather use the people that's in my proximity, like my domestic and extended family, like the local SPC that looks after my animals, and you know, channel it into an area where I know what's going to happen with those funds, and I can see the results for it. So I just wondered how corruption potentially impacted that.
We don't give money to government, but we've done something else. We've shown them how they're being ripped off. Or somebody's playing games. For example, you do a hospital for 10 million, and somebody says it costs 30 million to do the same thing. Right now, there's a school in Eastern Cape, which we've started fixing it already. And somebody came and said, but in 2015, when the fire took place, the building's supposed to be condemned. It needs a whole new building. It's 80 million rand upgrade. We can do the same thing for 2.8 million rand. And we're challenging the engineers. Our engineers are sitting with the engineers on Thursday. We're not saying they're responsible for making that comment, but we say let's compare report to report. And a lot of people within government have said, let's make another statement. Everybody in government is not corrupt. There's a lot of good people in government, a lot of good people in civil servants who want to do the right things. Either they don't know how, or they stopped, or they blocked. But a lot of government people are saying, why do we have to pay this kind of money when the same thing can be done at a cheaper price and much more efficiently? And they are now having those kind of thought processes. You know, I'm going to say something very blunt. Everybody talks about government being corrupt. Where does the corruption start from? It starts from the corporates. We have to change our values, our ethics, and the way we do business and the way we do things. A lot of it comes from there. So you want to fix things in the government, you need to fix things in yourself first. So, you know, a lot of companies got that kind of problem. There's collusion, there's other kind of things that happen. And then, in the end, who pays the price? The poor people in the country, and causes the disruption. So whilst we're having the giving report, we have to put a lot of, and I'm happy that a lot of companies are making ethics as a very big part of what they do right now. You know, and to say we have to change the way we do things.
Right.
I can add to that.
Yes, please do.
I think one of the key issues that we have in our democracy right now is the trust deficit between the people and the state. And I think what's really important is that we do also put money towards organizations that are holding the state to account for their constitutional obligations to deliver on those obligations that are found in the Constitution around healthcare and education and housing and water. And so we have a declining trust basis in our institutions, like in Parliament, like in the judiciary. The trust in the judiciary has halved over a 10-year period. That's very serious. And we see statements about not trusting the court, having ad hominem complaints about judges in particular. And so we do need to strengthen those institutions. And the work of democracy is about institutions and strengthening the accountability, the oversight of Parliament. This is work that has to be done. And whilst there's a humanitarian response, we also have to make sure that we're shoring up our institutions, because that's what can break a democracy, is weak institutions.
Okay. We've got time for one more question.
So I wanted to know if, Hein, particularly, if you've considered looking at the role of behavioral science in triggering and nudging people towards philanthropic giving in their own personal life. We've seen, you know, with the great behavioral economists, the book Nudge, how they inspire people to save more and, you know, to invest more in many countries around the world. I feel like using algorithms, designing technology around apps could inspire more giving. It'd be interesting to see in the next report if the role of behavioral science can nudge people towards more philanthropy.
I think you touching on a very important point. If I had to take some of the stories that I've been exposed to in the last year and show you slideshows, you all will be amazed of what is actually happening there. So the behavioral side is there already. Where I do think there's a missing link, and it's something that we've done in Nedbank Private Wealth now, is we've defined what we call philanthropy advice, and not necessarily the advice around taking assets, investing them, etc., etc. I'll give you a prime example. Let's say we've got a family of a mother, father, and 2 kids. Younger kids, which are all driven towards cryptocurrency and crypto payments. The mom is more towards the SPCA, and the father is more towards education. How do you have one trust, or if one wants to call it that way, to get to all 4? So the philanthropy advice that one actually has to have is to sit down and say, right, what do you want to achieve? How are we going to do it? What is the best organization that fits all 4, or is it 4 individual ones? Is the chemistry there between you that want to give and the organization? Are you seeing the influence of the money that you're giving in the right areas? So I think the behavioral side of that is actually driven through a philanthropic advice process, which then also comes through sometimes hard questions that needs to be asked. You cannot take a pot of money and give and hope the pot of money is going to last forever. That's where the financial advice component thereof comes in, where we need to sit down with some of our clients and saying, you want to do X, but you can only afford Y. So what are we going to build in Y in the next year's business plan? What are we doing the year thereafter? So it's almost, are you actually a sustainable business to want to give? Because there's nothing worse of an organization giving to someone and 2 years down the line they run out of money. So I think that's a big drive that we are specifically coming through our philanthropy division right now, where we're actually bringing the financial advice component and the philanthropic advice around how do we interact with our clients. And I think that's where the behavioral drive from our perspective is coming from at this point.
All right, Cassie, just like to give you the last word. I mean, with all the work that you're doing with corporates, the CSI strategies and all that, I mean, just your final takeaway of today's session.
Thanks. And I actually want to return to the very first question around focus versus more scattered approach. And we would always recommend a more focused approach, giving more money to a single cause. And for companies, our strong recommendation is causes aligned to the business. For individuals, I would say finding a cause or geography that that resonates with you and that you care about. And then, then within that focus area, I think it's very important to respond to things where you can see a tangible, immediate result, but also to put a portion of your funding, however small, towards systemic change. Because without holding government to account, doing the research, doing the advocacy, putting money into collective initiatives, you can't see an immediate result, but you working to change the system. So to have a focused portfolio, but with direct need, and then with a portion for systemic. And then the last piece of advice would really be around, and it comes back to something Dr. Suleiman said, is unrestricted giving. So rather than saying, I'm giving this to you for the soup kitchen on Elof Street, to really find organizations where you trust the leadership, you've seen evidence of outcomes, and you can give them unrestricted funding to use as is needed.
All right, perfect. I think personally for myself, round of applause for her. I think just my key takeaway, it would be interesting as you started off with in giving us the dessert to show that although 4.2 billion rand or so in cash had been given this time around, there had been a decline from the previous report, and would be interesting to see whether this is a new trend or if it reverses in the period ahead. But just to emphasize on the point that you also made, the fact that a lot of South Africans are giving and are really trying to do a good cause right now, not taking away from what you did say, so about how there's a lot more that can be done, and I certainly look forward to a whole lot more of that being done. But I also think that there's a lot more opportunity for more South Africans to find out about how they can do more, and certainly perhaps a role that us as members of the media can play in that regard. With that said, to the online audience, if there's any questions that you did ask that weren't we'll get the responses to the questions that you did ask. I'm sure the team at the back end at Nedbank will furnish you with those responses that came through on the chats, if any. And to the physical audience, thanks so much for indulging us with your time this afternoon. I do understand that there's various interviews that will be taking place right now with the speakers, so I'm going to allow everyone to get ready for that and ask you to help me thank the panelists for their time this afternoon. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
There are many different sides to you. Is your bank serious about connecting your wealth to all of them? Our wealth advisors connect your money decisions to every facet of your life. We call it Connected Wealth.